Hello, everyone. My name is Marcella Walsh, Live Content Coordinator at AVIXA, and welcome to the October Digital Signage Power Hour. Today's webinar topic is why drive-through lane displays are mission critical. This webinar is being brought to you by our series sponsor, StrataCache. Joining us today is Dan Williams, Senior Director of Content Strategies at StrataCache. Dan has 20 years of experience with digital technology, data ROI analysis, and strategic planning to market consumer products in the food and beverage industries. He is a quick service restaurant subject matter expert recognized for architecting marketing solutions, building brand equity, increasing customer relevancy, and driving revenue. Dan led the efforts to create the digital retailing vision and technical solution for 14,000 McDonald's restaurants in the US. Our roundtable discussion will be led by Dave Haynes, founding editor at 16.9. Before I hand over the presentation to Dan, there are a few housekeeping items. For those viewing live, today's webinar qualifies for one CTS, CTSD, and CTSI RU credit. Please allow 5 to 7 business days to view on your transcripts. For any issues, please email webinars@avixa.org. The webinar will be approximately 45 to 60 minutes, and all attendees will be placed on mute. If you have questions during the presentation, please enter them into the Q&A window so today's moderator can address them at the end of the webinar. To access the Q&A window, simply move your cursor to the bottom of your live stream video box to locate the Q&A icon and click to open. Please do not enter questions into the chat window. You will have access to this recorded webinar at avixa.org/webinars within about 5 business days. And now I will hand things over to Dan. Take it away, Dan.
Thank you. And it's great to be here. This is a lively topic, certainly with what's taking place in the restaurant industry today. So it's a great opportunity to not only share what we know, but also to learn from other folks as well. I'm just going to jump right in. So a little bit about StrataCache. As we know, there's many moving parts to what's taking place in the drive-thru today, certainly as well as with other types of businesses. We at StrataCache service numerous types of categories, QSR being one of them, which certainly allows us the insights of what our clients are dealing with, what our clients' needs are, as well as some of the industry trends that I'm going to be sharing with you along the way today. Here is a great chart that came from Yelp. It just came out of their economic average report, which was released in July. And as my focus of areas in marketing, I naturally gravitate towards what's taking place with the consumer, as well as what's taking place around them. And while this chart shares with us what's taking place in a number of different areas of the economy, restaurants are certainly at the forefront of all that. And with nearly 24,000 restaurants closing in some way, whether temporarily or permanently, we're seeing the impact that is not only having on the people who work there and the economy as a result, but also the options that people have when it comes to dining away from home. You know, for those restaurants that remain open, we see the importance that drive-through plays in their ability to continue to conduct business, right? And certainly brands who have drive-through as part of their DNA, that's core to their business, it's core to their operations, it's core to their purchasing efforts, really certainly have a leg up on what's taking place. It's not to say that companies who do not offer drive-through services are falling way behind, but those companies that have made it their business of being involved in the drive-through and servicing the customer in the drive-through certainly are reaping the benefits of that. So when your restaurants and your kitchens are set up to service drive-through and get your customers through that drive-through experience as quickly as possible, they're certainly are taking a lion's share of the marketplace because they know how to do it and get it done right. And that's what I think this is all about, right? What does it look like for other chains and other companies moving forward when it comes to supporting their drive-through? Here's a quick slide that talks about who was using drive-through even before COVID, right? So we know that 60 to 70% of customers use the drive-through on a day in and day out basis. Close to 60% of people who preferred hamburgers in fast food use the drive-through. 40% of Mexican QSR customers use the drive-thru, and certainly close to 40% of customers who preferred chicken were using the drive-thru even before the COVID disaster hit our country. So related to the importance of continuing to have drive-thru as a supportive effort in your business, customers are still seeking food away from home, right? 21% of customers have visited a new restaurant recently in the last couple of weeks. So people are still out looking to complement their dietary needs with restaurants. And certainly 52% of those customers who have been out looking for new restaurants have focused on those with drive-through services. Now, this would not only be the ease of drive-through, but drive-through services as far as pickup and delivery as well. So we're seeing the importance of drive-through as a key cornerstone in being able to stay relevant with the consumer in the restaurant industry today, as well as making sure that customers have that availability and that ease of use coming to your site. Well, drive-through has only increased with time since the advent of the pandemic. As I had said earlier, 60 to 70% of customers were already using the drive-through on a regular basis, but with lobbies closing, limited access to storefronts and things like that, the use of drive-through has only increased, right? And drive-through itself has seen the highest increases versus those restaurants who continue to provide dining in services, curbside, as well as delivery. So drive-through is continuing to take the lion's share of the customers' visits, and therefore drive-through, quite honestly, is becoming the lifeline or the lifeblood for many restaurants who look to continue to provide services to their customers moving forward. And with that, consumers' expectations have changed, right? They've kind of changed for the better. And in many ways, they're bringing those expectations that they were sharing inside the restaurant now into the drive-through. So those brands who seem to be meeting the customer's needs the best are seeing the opportunity and what it is on how they're conducting business in the drive-through. Customers want greater transparency. They want to know what's going on and what's taking place at the place where they're eating. They need to know that there's certainly safety and social protocols being met, and they're being responsible along the way. They want to know what products are available. They don't want to be left guessing as to whether it is or not I'm ordering, you still have it, right? Convenience and ease of ordering are always going to be the cornerstone of what's taking place in drive-through, as it was taking place inside the store in order accuracy. And some of the latest reports that show what's taking place with the customer, even though speed of service is a key component in building your business, the customer's expectation that help define their brand preferences go beyond just speed of services and are becoming more of those customers' expectations moving forward. And we only see that increasing with time, right? And so here's my last slide, right? And this last slide helps emphasize why move towards digital today. So certainly we've talked about the benefits of having a digital drive-through. Brands we know fare significantly better during the COVID pandemic when they have great drive-through service and digital adoption taking place. With the growth of mobile ordering taking place, your digital footprint becomes even more important. The access to the multiple delivery apps that are taking place, as well as the customer's expectation for contactless ordering. And the last point that I'd like to say is from the people that we've supported and helped, we're finding that those who have already adopted in-store digital technology and have gone through that learning curve are finding it much easier to now adapt to their digital drive-through needs as well. So in many cases, it's kind of a crawl, walk, run scenario. And those who certainly have some digital terra firma underneath their feet are finding it easier and more applicable for their sites in order to move over to digital. So that's just my quick update on some of the things that we see taking place with the consumer, as well as what's taking place in the industry overall. And now I'd like to turn it over to Dave.
Thanks, Dan. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'll kind of pile on what Dan was saying about the state of the economy. I did some quick research, and It shows the restaurant industry in the United States this year is expected to lose 240 billion, billion with a B, dollars this year just because of COVID. It's been very, very rough. It's been particularly rough for sit-down restaurants and less so for the QSR industry and to some degree in fast casual. Those companies that had drive-through in place already or other elements of digital have certainly fared better. I'm sure if you follow the QSR industry at all, you've heard talk about how drive-through accounts for 70% of the business. In some cases, like for McDonald's and other operations like that, that went up to like 90, 95%, all the way up to near 100% of business, because that's the only way they could do trade. You weren't allowed to go into the dining area. And it became a particular problem for those chains that didn't really rely on drive-through typically. A great example of that would be something like Shake Shack, which is a burger chain. They have seen their business drop anywhere from 25 to all the way up to 65% during COVID. It's been extremely rough on them. But what they're doing and what other companies are now doing, like Chipotle, are they're adding drive-through and they're adding other digital capabilities to deal with that. So you're going to see a lot more of that in the future in terms of using digital signage in, various ways to kind of help them drive the business. It's also been a bit of a problem, and one of the reasons we invited Ping HD on this was you have sports and entertainment venues who have concessions, and Ping is very strong in that particular area, and that's taken a big hit because we're not seeing live events. So we've got a great panel to talk about all this today. And first of all, we've got Dan, obviously, he's introduced himself. We have Sarah Grofchik from Samsung, who leads the company's very busy QSR practice. We have Todd Hoffman, who runs in-store digital for Krispy Kreme, the donut chain. And we have Dave Petrusik from Ping HD, companies based out of Denver. So guys, why don't you all hit your video and hit your mics and join in? And while they're doing that, I'll ask Dan, what are you seeing out in the marketplace? Who's thriving? Who's been really challenged by all of this?
That's a great question, and I think as I said earlier, the ones that are thriving the most are the ones who have drive-through down pat, right? They have the ability to reset their kitchens. They have the operations in place. They have the people in place to really meet that increased need in drive-through, right? So those are the companies that who have always excelled in drive-through and will continue to excel. I think the other companies who have offered drive-through as a service, but maybe not core to their business. I'll use Panera as an example of that. That's a restaurant group here in the US. While they offered drive-through, their sites were never really built to maximize drive-through. Their kitchens were really never set up to support large volume demand coming through the drive-through. So they're now in a position where they really need to restructure what they're doing, not only outside, but also inside to meet that increased demand. And for customers who are expecting a certain amount of speed of service and attention to detail and order accuracy, you're going to see a company like that that's going to struggle until they really start to get it right more than not.
And Sarah, it's one thing to say, well, just add drive-through. It's quite another thing to actually do it, right? It's nowhere near that simple.
Of course, and it's actually, you and I've had this conversation before, Dave. People who already have drive-through, that they were using it for, as you said, 70%, 60% of their current business. But then when COVID hit, they had the opportunity to turn drive-through into a communication platform for their customers. So we've seen, a lot of customers that were already making the digital transformation right before COVID, maybe go a little bit on hold or maybe accelerate a little bit quicker. But we actually have seen a lot of different boutique brands and additional companies that necessarily weren't looking at a digital transformation just yet, go ahead and make the plunge or go ahead and dip their toe in the water and start testing digital. Not only just because of the content, but the fact that they can communicate with the drive-through, with their customers. They're able to say, listen, our store hours are changing, or this store is going to be temporarily shut down for a week. Go visit our other location off of 57th Street. So it became a platform for them to provide content, provide communication, give updates. And with a lot of those companies that have went ahead and made the transformation during COVID, they're seeing that, okay, the drive-through is a start, but then they're starting to update the indoors as well. So they're actually starting to get more on the wagon for digital transformation, and that it's truly helping their business cultivate to this new norm that we have.
I suspect there's been a lot of tire kickers that you guys have all talked to who've, been thinking about doing this, but they'll kick it down the road to next year. Then all this happened and they're thinking, oh man, we really should have pulled the trigger on this last year.
Sure, you're right. And we've actually, I think all of us on this call have had customers or, longtime customers that have said, okay, let's try this, or let's start looking at curbside. We may not have drive-through. Let's see if we can dabble in the curbside and look at mobile app integration. What can we do to try to keep our business going and still provide some type of service to our customers out there? So I believe that there's been a lot of different brilliant ideas that have cultivated since COVID. Some of them maybe not have always taken off, but there's been a lot of different platforms that I think all of our customers have been asking to any type of ideas that can keep their doors open at this time. How can they provide some type of service to the economy out there?
And Todd, you have this interesting situation where you've opened a new restaurant with all kinds of digital in it, and you're involved in QSR intensely these days.
Yep.
You opened a flagship store right in the heart of Manhattan in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, no drive-through going on there, but
not in Times Square.
Yeah, certainly, our brand is all about personalization and, entertainment, I'd say, and living up to expectations. And there's such a passion for Krispy Kreme donuts that to say you're opening a flagship, you really had to step up. So we have, gone gangbusters inside and outside with digital there in terms of projection. Knowing we were going on Broadway, we created a show that happens every 12 minutes, but lots of digital boards. The one takeaway is we wanted people to enjoy the digital experience, but not feel like they were inundated with digital. It had to be integrated and holistic with our core experience that goes back 83 years.
And just for those people who may not know about it, this is a store right on one of the main corners in Times Square with all kinds of digital going on, right from an LED, very large LED header board over the store. Was a giant hot sign of some kind, and on and on and on.
16-foot hot sign, largest we've ever done. Instead of trying to compete head on with all the other digital in the square, we just created the world's largest hot sign, and all it does is light and rotate. And because we're always making donuts, it's always on. And it really does stand out. But in other ways, we have a 130-foot wraparound digital screen that complements the store as well as the rotating hot light.
So Dave, sports and entertainment venues are different, obviously, from a regular QSR, but it's food services. People are going up to an order counter, they're seeing a menu board, they're ordering stuff. What has happened through all of this that's different, and how are these kinds of operations adjusting? Because now, I mean, the World Series starts tonight, and there's, as far as I know, at least as of 2:19 this afternoon, they're letting people into the game tonight.
Yeah, we've seen a mixture of things. I mean, we have, at least 24 NFL, Major League Baseball, NHL, and NBA customers who have 100, 200, 300, 400 licenses per stadium. And unfortunately, some of them, made the decision early on that they weren't going to have fans. So, we saw those networks go dark. Others decided they were going to open their stadium, let fans in, like in the NFL. We didn't see any fans in Major League Baseball until the postseason or until later in the postseason. But, we've had several teams in the NFL who needed help to be ready. And, we even landed a brand new customer, the Kansas City Chiefs, and we had to help with Samsung's help put, over 120 or 150 displays in Arrowhead Stadium, and completed that installation literally almost the morning of NFL kickoff that Thursday night. And luckily helped them get all the content up and running so they had a good fan experience. So it's been a mixture of both. We've seen different things happen on the QSR side, but the sports and entertainment side has been pretty difficult.
Yeah, I bet. If you are going to use drive-through, this is kind of an age-old question, and I know how you'll answer it, but maybe people listening may not, is why do I need a digital screen and a digital pre-sell display in my drive-through lanes? Why can't I just use a printed poster? Dan.
Ah,
No, I'd be more than happy to go ahead. And I think all of us have our opinions on it. But
Mhm.
I mean, really, we see that digital, I mean, the screens are the on-ramp for different technology and use cases through the drive-through. It helps with customization. In fact, digital helps actually speeding up the order. So it helps people get through the line faster. So, I mean, there's lots of different reasons. We all have our own, but really, to me, the technology is just the on-ramp for various different software packages and solutions that can be offered. It can help with predicting an order. It can help give options. Let's say that we're also in the situation where we're running out of a certain product. You can then, displace it pretty quickly and add something else. If we're wanting to promote something a little bit differently, it's easier for a click of a button versus having to print and change the menu. And it also does take a lot of the crew time to go out there and change the menu. If you have day partings and you've got breakfast and you're going to lunch, that's going to take somebody's time to go out there and change the menu. So that's my opinion. Obviously, I could talk for hours about why digital in the drive-through, but from my standpoint, those are a few hot topics on my side.
Dan?
sure. And just to complement that, because that's a question, probably the most primary question that gets asked when we're talking to a customer about developing a business case or ROI, right?
Because it's expensive. I mean, this is not
Yeah.
this is not putting a TV out there. It's like
No,
there's a lot involved.
there's maybe somewhere along the way we'll get into the conversation of the economics behind all this too, right? When we talk about franchisee, expenses and kind of who pays for that and how these things all get financed and things like that. But oftentimes a customer will ask me that and I'll say, there's two main factors: customer relevancy. And I'm always going to make it about the customer because that's what I do, because the customer is at the center of everything, right? And communication, marketing, agility, right? Customers, I wouldn't say it's ubiquitous wherever they go digital signage, but it's getting there, right? And so customers are looking for a more relevant form of communication because it says a lot about the brand and it says a lot about the type of information that they're receiving. But on the client side, their agility, their ability to bob and weave with what and when and how they want to communicate with consumers actually puts that at the cornerstone. It's very difficult to have that kind of agility on a print-based format, really. And even the print-based formats have become cheaper and cheaper along the way, but there still is that physical labor involved. But your ability to have the agility to focus on certain products, focus on certain day parts, focus on certain customers really lie at the cornerstone of why a pre-sell or a digital menu board is going to give you the bandwidth that you're going to need in order to really help move your business, right? And again, customer relevancy too, I think, is key as it relates back to the brand.
And let's just explore that a little bit. What do you mean by relevancy? I mean, I know what the word means, but
Well, so, a customer would go through a drive-through that is worn and tattered and may have had the same print-based menu board there for the last 10, 15 years, right? And drive-through equipment takes a beating, right? It gets old really, really quick, right? Time and with age. But when a customer goes through the drive-through and they see new signage, new digital signage, new ways of communicating, new ways of bringing the product to life, it makes it more relevant for them. They feel closer to the brand. They feel the brand is being more relevant and more up to date. And I think the digital signage helps bring that to life for the customer. And it certainly has an impact on their brand preference as well.
And the
agree with-
relevance. No, go ahead.
I'd agree with Dan. For me, the preview screen is really the game changer more than, replacing our static menu boards with other menu boards. Just because throughput, in the COVID era, we have such a backup that has developed in our line, and that's really the number one tool that would help us. That in order accuracy would help us expedite the line, helping people think about their order before they get up to the microphone. The one thing to add is in New York City in Times Square, we actually stole from that playbook. And in our queue inside the shop, we have a preview board so that people can start thinking while they're waiting in line before they even get to the menu boards. So we're taking some of the best of drive-through and actually bringing it inside the store, again, with throughput and the customer experience as kind of number 1 and 2 in our book.
And the throughput is just a simple math equation of the more people you can pound through that drive-through lane in an hour, more the higher revenues you're going to see, right?
Absolutely. Yep. And the takeaway, I mean, if you've been in line for 45 minutes, you'll still wait around for the donuts, but will you do it again next time? Right. And if we can get you through faster, it's a much more pleasant experience, one that you're more likely to repeat.
Dan spoke about relevancy. One of the things that's started to emerge in the last couple of years, particularly driven by, the monster account out there, McDonald's, is using artificial intelligence and machine learning to do menu optimization, customer by customer by customer. McDonald's even bought a company from Israel to do that. And I know that Stratacache has one of its member companies that does that sort of work. What's involved there, and what's the return on it? And I'll go to Dan on that.
Well, it's a growing type of technology, right? And we'll talk about crawl, walk, run, right? So as you start to incorporate all those data points, right? Who's using your drive-through, when they're using your drive-through, how they're using your drive-through, you start to incorporate all that so you can better position your menu to the ordering habits of your customer based on when they're using your location, right? So you can focus on the products that they're most interested in, given a certain period of the day or the type of day that's going on. And so that helps you with throughput in the kitchen because you're really focused on those products that customers are buying. You're going to sell more of them. You're going to be able to make them quicker, and you're going to be able to get people through, right? And then also you're being, again, this relevancy back to the consumer. You know me, you recognize me, maybe not on a one-on-one basis right now, but you're having a better idea of what I need at a certain time of the day or based on the type of consumer that I am. So you're able to meet their needs on a one-on-one basis, as opposed to a many-to-one basis, which drive-through was kind of known on, right? You just kind of put it all out there and let people decide what it is that they're going to order and take one at a time. But now you're moving away from that, and you're being able to pinpoint communication to them based on who they are, when they're using your location, and how they're using your location. So, as that data continues to build, you'll be able to do more and more with it down the way.
So this is like way, way beyond day part menus or anything else.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, but there still is the security factor that you have to be, you're not able to identify people one-on-one, but you can certainly identify how many people are in a car because now you're dealing with a group order, right? You'll be able to identify whether it's a male or a female placing that order. So you have a general idea through all this data acquisition and information, how best to formulate information and menus back to them that kind of meet their needs based on when they're there. And then as this continues to grow, whether it's linked in with the loyalty programs and things like that, you'll be able to do more and more with it down the road. So some people ask, why get into digital now? The footprint is critical, but it's also going to give you the baseline in which you'll be able to grow your business based on AI needs and provisioning down the road.
So even spending that kind of money, if you're even seeing an uplift of an additional 1% in average ticket size or order size. That's like real money, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you think about what it takes in order to move the needle just using traditional media, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can grow your business 1, 2, 3% just using media, imagine if you can now invest those dollars, which are kind of gone 30 days after that advertising is run, more into a hardware investment and continue to capitalize on that 1 to 2% incremental growth on sales. That's just money well spent.
So that's McDonald's doing that sort of thing. Is this the sort of technology that really any QSR, whether they're regional or just, a chain with 10 locations in one city, is it the sort of technology that maybe not today, but at some point reasonably soon they could adapt?
Certainly, because the software is out there, right? The software and the matrices and the algorithms have already been developed in order to be able to capitalize on these things. So yes, it's great if I own 20 McDonald's or 200 McDonald's, or I'm running a network of 14,000. Those same applications are adaptable to the small business owner, to the medium-sized business owner, because they're going to continue to do that. I think if you go back and you look at the pizza business, they were by far ahead of the curve for most people, because when you think about the traditional pizza business, a big part of the success of a pizza business is knowing who their customers are and what they prototypically order, right? And even before COVID, even before digital menu boards, even before AI analytics, the value in a pizza company was knowing who their customers were and what their customer base was. And so they kind of locked down on that from the early beginning, knowing how to best meet their customers' needs and keeping all that information in-house so you know how to service them, right?
And
Sarah and Dave, you guys both talk, I'm sure, to a lot of QSR operators. Are they bringing this technology up as something they want to do, or are they looking at it and saying, well, that's McDonald's, we don't have several $100 million to enact this ourselves?
Yeah, sure. From, our standpoint, we've had various customers, and to what Dan said, to all different sizes. It's not just the McDonald's of the world that wants to play in this arena. It's the small to medium ones as well, the more unique or boutique brands. So it's everyone who's looking to scale this type of customization. So yes, they actually, they see that digital is an on-ramp for different technology, but the end goal is to get to this rhythm of having mobile app integration with their loyalty program and learning more about their customer base. Because if they learn more, they're able to provide more customizations to their customers, which will then have them return even faster. That's the goal. But yes, we've seen multiple QSRs ask for this type of technology and solution. So it's not just the major large brands. It's all across the board.
and
Do they need to have data science capabilities or anything, or is it one of these situations where the vendor and outside contractors can kind of pull this together for them without them worrying about their heads exploding trying to learn it all?
That's a good point. And Dan, all of us, Dave, we've all had these conversations with clients. There's multiple solutions out there. So it's really just depending on how it needs to scale, what's the size of the project, what they're all wanting to include. So there's solutions where the customers can be completely hands-on, or they can be hands-off and let a company come in and pretty much just project manage everything for it and customize the entire application. So it's truly up to how the customers want it. Are they wanting to be involved and help with a lot of the analytics and what does it look like? Or do they just say, this is what I want, but I want someone else to kind of manage it and just give me the assets back. Let me know the reporting and what's working and what's not working. So there's all sorts of different solutions out there that can scale to what the customer's looking for, how involved they want to be and how not involved they want to be, kind of a little bit more hands off and have it be a solution that can stand up on its own.
we're seeing the same thing, Dave. Whether it's from a QSR with 10 locations or 50 locations or 200 locations or bigger, but the key is, especially from a CMS perspective, in my opinion, is to make sure that you're willing and working with a CMS partner who has done the API software integration into that analytics platform. Has either done it or is willing to do it to be able to trigger the right content, because there are still many facets of our industry that are fragmented, right? You have the display guys, the kiosk guys, the wall mount guys, you have the analytic people, you have the CMS companies. but it's all of us working together to provide the complete solution. And if the CMS platform hasn't done or isn't willing to do that API software integration to trigger the appropriate content, then it's not going to work.
Todd, you have an interesting perspective, and like these folks who are selling stuff, you're buying stuff and speccing stuff
Yeah.
and hearing the pitch from all kinds of different companies. What's important to you, and what do you think is important to your kind of brethren of other people who are doing the same role for other QSR companies? What do you want to hear, and how do you want to work with them? Because I hear more and more that companies are asking for single source or a turnkey solution provider who's going to pull the whole thing together for them because they don't have the time, the energy, or the knowledge to kind of cherry pick and find all the right things to make this whole thing work.
I'd break it into two halves. One is the physical setup and structure of the drive-through. We have currently a pilot of 5 digital drive-throughs. And first and foremost is getting it right from the customer standpoint. The audio, the visual, and that's actually been a challenge there. But we definitely want to get that right before we get into the kind of higher math of it all, of personalization and tying to our loyalty program. That's definitely something we are gearing up for. And I'd say we'll be using 2021 to figure out the drive-through experience of the future. Unfortunately, because the sooner we get to digital drive-through, the sooner we get the payback. But it's such a big investment. We want to make sure we get it right, both on the physical side and make sure we have the setup technologically to optimize its ability to personalize and connect with our best customers.
I'm curious about the displays. I know that's just one component, but it's a significant component when it comes to the drive-through side of things. The last time I was at a trade show when we all did those things, I was wandering around ISE in Amsterdam and amazed by the number of outdoor display enclosure companies. And I'm curious, particularly from Sarah, how does an end user or a solutions provider who maybe doesn't do this every day, but has a client who wants them to take a look at drive-through displays, how do they sort out what's good, what's not, what's important, what's not, all those kinds of things? Because they can all say we're IP blank blank rated, we're daylight ready, or we're bright and X number of lumens and so on, but that's not necessarily going to get you to the right answer.
Sure. And when you really look at drive-through, it's, you've got the screens, you're right, the enclosure, you've got the content piece. All of these pieces have to work together to obviously give the end goal, which is the digital menu board and the solutions that are embedded with it. So when it comes to the enclosure itself, it truly depends. There's lots of partners, the CMS partners that have their content, and depending on how they display their content, if it's through media players, if it's through embedded players of the screen itself, they have a certain capacity of how that player needs to sit. Sometimes they're inside the store, sometimes they're outside in the drive-through. So a lot of those partners already have integrations with fabricators that make the enclosure piece. So that has already been partnered, already vetted out between those two organizations. You then also have the end user that has a look and feel in mind. They want it to look a certain way. They have a height requirements. They may want a pre-sell board. They may want speaker mic embedded. So there's all various different questions out there that the end user and specifications that they may have that need to be met. And then really when you're speccing out the drive-through, it's all of these different aspects and companies getting together to make sure whatever is being customized for that client is the right solution. It doesn't necessarily have to be cookie cutter, one size fits all for all the clients. Every client's going to be completely different depending on how all the solutions are integrating, depending on the content piece, depending on which display you get, depending on the enclosure itself. They're all going to look different. So what McDonald's may do, it may look a little bit different than what Starbucks does or other companies out there. So it's all moving pieces. It's not a one size fits all. But again, to kind of sum it up, the partners may already have some relationships with the fabricators, but then the end users also may already have a look and feel that they want to incorporate it. So there's a lot of different variables when you're actually designing the drive-through piece.
And you also have to think about the infrastructure, right? That there's the display and there's all the electronics components, but you have to think about the cost of trenching out to get power out to the drive-through, and concrete, and on and on and on, right? And that can add a lot of cost, right?
Oh, it absolutely can. So, and again, each location, each brand's going to be different. Some of them have them hardwired. Some are actually playing with Wi-Fi through the drive-through. So if it's a new drive-through, it's different because you're laying foundation, you're laying the conduit. It's completely different. If you're revamping a drive-through and you're adding digital, that's going to look a little bit different. So all of these pieces and parts and all the really the players that are outfitting ODMB, outdoor digital menu boards, have to come together and work together to build out a customization for the client. So again, a drive-through that's being remodeled is going to look completely different than a new build where you're laying concrete the first time. But there's obviously there's cost involved, and that's part of all of our jobs when we're talking with our clients, is to try to figure out what's the best way possible for them, and obviously try to save some money. I mean, it's a long-term investment, it's a heavy investment, so we want to make sure that it's done right and that all of our clients are happy with the whole program that everyone builds in place for it.
Now, I've heard about curbside display and curbside pickup, and how this is going to be added to a lot of businesses, not only QSR, but in retail in general. Is the buyer public, all of these operators, mentally conditioned to the idea of adding another display enclosure outside, and the costs associated with that, to say, Bob, your order is ready, please pick up here, that sort of thing? Or how is that going to work?
So from, I mean, my perspective, my opinion is that a lot of the clients that we've seen, let's take drive-through out. Let's look at just, chained restaurants, other avenues that necessarily do not have a drive-through. A lot of them have been asking, saying, we need a screen. And some of them were saying, we want it to be something that is completely embedded in the ground, and we want something that's on wheels that we can bring in and out. It's going to depend on what's going on with our days and how we're opening. So how flexible can you be? What are the different offerings you can provide to us? We also have a lot of different restaurants that, or even retail, that are saying, we can't really do curbside. We can't put a screen out there. Maybe something that we have to do with permitting. Let's put that screen inside. Is there anything you've got within the in window? We have static POP. Can we make it digital? Is there anything that we can provide there? So for curbside, we've looked at actually screens outside, and we've also looked at screens within inside facing out towards the street. So when you've got, at that point, you can do a lot of customer and mobile app integration. So when you drive up, Dave, you go in line 5 or lane 5, will bring you your food, or it pulls you up and it knows you're there. Hello, Dave, your order will be ready in 5 minutes. We'll bring it to your car. So they're trying to make sure that there's some type of communication to the customers so they can provide some type of real fast production to all the different clients that are putting in orders. But how can we make a drive-through without having a drive-through? We've got a parking lot. What else can we do? We can do curbside. We also, for the different restaurants, we can do pickup and mobile ordering. And how can we communicate with the customers that are driving up? So we've seen a lot of different projects come into play for curbside and in window. And again, and it's incorporating with the loyalty program or online ordering. How can we just communicate out to the customers that are coming through?
Anybody else's perspective?
I've even seen a number of opportunities when restaurants were finally allowed to reopen, whether it was outdoor service or finally when indoor service came back to some extent, depending on your capacity. We were starting to hear opportunities for traditional sandwich board like digital sign displays. Okay, that could be wheeled in and out just to the curb because they didn't have room in the window, for that kind of display, or room behind the counter, or the money for the investment for that matter. But they were willing to spend something to put out on the curb just to draw attention instead of trying to print something at Kinko's or what have you, to try and put that in the window. So we were seeing a number of those types of opportunities as well. And it wasn't primarily for menu boards. It was more for the fact of just letting drivers, know that they're open, to draw in attention, to draw customers back in.
Todd, your store in Times Square, and I know that there's a whole bunch of Krispy Kreme stores out there, but this one is all based around experience and you've got scheduled shows and the whole 9 yards. But is there a more broad sort of approach to how you deliver experience in a QSR from the point of view of the screens you use, the messaging that's in there, and what are you trying to convey?
From a digital standpoint, where we're early in the game, and again, we're in a pilot phase, both interior and exterior. We've got 20 shops with interior boards. So we're learning. What we're trying to master is the use of animation and link it to analytics so that we can confirm the lift. Right now, we're building the business case for digital menu boards, both internally and externally. And we have to tie it to numbers, and at the moment it's difficult. But again, our first phase was let's get the physical components in place, and let's get the kinks out, and then let's kind of move in with menu engineering to kind of optimize. And then when we are able to show it on our current set of boards, that's when we'll have the confidence to roll out much more broadly.
Mm. One of the big shifts that seemed to be happening in the QSR industry was a move to self-service ordering through touchscreen kiosks, that sort of thing. Then COVID hit, and there was, at least initially, a worry that nobody's going to want to ever touch a screen again. What's actually happening in the if the stores are accessible to go inside and do ordering? Are touchscreens being used? Are they being shut down, or what? Because I've certainly heard that self-service ordering is still very valid because it enables you to not require a one-to-one conversation with somebody at an order counter.
So this is Dan. I'll tell you what I've seen. I've seen some sites that only have kiosk ordering, that there really is no one at the front counter except someone who may be there to answer a question or bring the food out to you, right? Mm-hmm. And that could have a lot to do with labor. That could have a lot to do with order accuracy. That could have a lot to do with what customers are most comfortable with. In some cases, people don't want to come in contact with another person, so they feel more comfortable using a screen in which to place their order as opposed to having to interact with a person, right? And while my opinion was that customers were slow to adapt to the kiosk ordering, they've now overcome that and are seeing it as the mainstay of their ordering protocol when they come into a location, right? It's something that they've become more used to. It's something that meets their general needs better. And I think the operations of the restaurants are more gearing towards that now, as opposed to having it as kind of an added extra.
What I think Dan's right, but what we've noticed is those QSR customers aren't turning off those displays behind the counter. Even though there might not be people behind the counter working, they're not turning them off, or they're not holding back from purchasing if they haven't before, because it's still where most people will look to see what's on the menu. Maybe all the self-service kiosks are busy, or just out of pure habit, you're going to walk into that restaurant and immediately look to the counter and look behind the counter. And we've seen on our networks for some of our larger QSR customers, they're using some of that space to convey information about COVID-19 protocols to make sure customers feel safe when they walk in. Here's what we're doing. This is how we're preparing the food. This is how often we're cleaning, and so on and so forth. So it's not like people are turning off the displays behind the counter, but I think Dan's right. People are becoming more accustomed to just walking up to self-service, or maybe there isn't somebody behind the counter to take the order.
Yeah, I just to echo that too. I think that media channel called a menu board now, I think that the days of thinking of it as a menu board are kind of passé for me. I think it's more critical as a media channel in which to connect with the customer, because you can do so much more with it now than you used to be able to, what a prototypical menu board used to be used for, right? So it's really, for those who really see the insight and the value of it, can almost see it as an extension of their media plan, quite honestly, as well as the utilitarian purpose of serving it as a menu board per se too.
Right.
Yeah, my comments is regarding the kiosk and the digital boards inside. I do think that we're going to continue seeing an uptick of kiosk, and absolutely to the point that they've gotten used to the fact of ordering on kiosk and self-ordering, mobile app integration. But behind the counters, we're still going to see the digital menu boards, or we're going to see them transform and change a bit and maybe have more order status boards, mobile app ordering. So then they're still communicating, they're still using those boards to give real-time updates, and it may be tied into the kiosk that they just placed an order on. So there's still going to be some type of process with the menu boards that are installed right now, or future boards that get installed behind the counters.
All right, Marcella, we've got a number of questions kind of queued up. Do you want to run through them?
I do. So John is asking, are there any technology solutions for a restaurant location that cannot physically build a drive-through?
Sure, I'll go ahead and start answering that one. So of course, I mean, this goes along to the conversation we were talking about, curbside pickup. There's obviously, if you do not have a drive-through, what do you have available? Is it just, there's limited parking? Could we put a sign outside? Could we help with the mobile app or loyalty app integration to try to provide some type of customization? So there's tons of ideas out there. If you don't physically have a drive-through, you could do the in-window ordering, you could do the curbside pickup with the screen and provide real-time updates, or even build a limited menu on the screen. And as Dave mentioned earlier, that it can be portable. You can put it on wheels, you can move it in and out. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that's installed 100% into the ground. There's a lot of flexibility in screens and the enclosures nowadays about what can be pulled and be more mobile.
I even saw in doing a little bit of reading, there was a small chain that does, I think they're focused on chicken salad, which seemed a little odd, but they did not have drive-throughs. So they put temporary tents, like marquee tents, out in their parking lot and staffed it with people with POS-based tablets so they could do ordering right there. So it was a hack, but it was a way for them to do business.
So Tom is asking, have there been any configuration changes the last few months? For example, have there been more displays using external players, BrightSign, Ping, Intel, NUC, etc., or integrated player systems?
We haven't really seen any changes. I mean, if you look at licenses that we have out there, it's primarily on system on chip displays. Especially for menu boards. I mean, whether it's drive-through or behind the counter. The memory, the chip built inside the Samsung, whether it's the OHF for outdoor or QMR for indoor, that built-in chip for no external media player does the job just fine. So we haven't seen any changes in that, pre-pandemic or during the pandemic.
I think if I could just chime in for the value of an internal or external media player, when you start to take a look at some of these really large networks who need customization down to the site, right? Even McDonald's, it's 14,000. It may be a collection of 14,000 units, but they're still individual locations that need to be able to manage their content on a day parting basis, on a specific menu basis, and things like that. And then given the rise of expectations from a creative standpoint on what the brands want to do and what they want to be able to express back to their customers, we're seeing that those media players continue to play a very intricate and integral role in being able to give spot on level content distribution to those locations.
Yeah, from my comment, I would say with there being various different brands of screens out there, there's different capabilities from each manufacturer. To Dave's point, the system on a chip is something that we see very niche, and we see it that it's absolutely a way that you can provide customized content, and that robust content you can actually provide video. So there's a lot that you can do on people's embedded or external. So to me, it's really going to come down to what the preference of the customer is. There's all sorts of different avenues. So it's really going to depend on what the customer is comfortable with. If it's something that they've utilized in the past, we see that that's been part of their future. But it's truly just something that it comes down to the customer's level of how they want to integrate. Both options are available. Both have pluses to them. So to me, it's really just to the customer. We haven't seen any really changes on our side either to answer the question though.
Ralph is asking, what percentage of drive-through restaurants have been digitized?
He's looking for free research.
I would say for that one, we would have to get back to him because it's going to depend on are we looking at just the context of during COVID? Are we looking at in general? We've seen a lot of businesses that are piloting. Some have decided to go ahead and make the transformation, but at this time, I think it'd be a little hard to give an overall number to that.
I think it'd be a fair assessment or statement to say that it's certainly accelerated in the last couple of years, and a lot of that is driven by the big guys like the McDonald's kind of completing their full estate of locations with drive-through, and that kind of tells the other operators, well, if they're doing it, we should do it too. Is that a fair statement?
That I would most on from my side, and I know that Dan and Dave and Todd obviously have their opinions as well, but yes, it's one of those things. Over the years, we've seen digital completely pick up. If the context again is during COVID or then last 12 months, that's something that we need to take a look at. But we're seeing more drive-throughs, more indoor, moving towards a digital platform. So yes, the big guys have done it, but we also are seeing more of the boutique brands as well. It's a platform for them, not just to showcase a menu board, but to bring other technologies and communication skills to their customers. So it's certainly something that we see a trend that it continues to move up. And we do expect that there's going to be other areas within the restaurant and retail that will go digital as well. We were looking at, we're talking about static POP earlier. We see that moving more digital. What's in the back of the house, crew communication board. So there's a lot of different aspects to the stores in general that have been moving more to a digital platform.
And I would just echo that as well, because I think even though some of the larger players, whether it's Burger King, whether it's McDonald's, whomever it may be, now Taco Bell, right, are moving more towards this larger digital footprint. I think it's moved beyond screen envy, right? They need it, so I got to have it. So I think the mindset of moving beyond screen envy is kind of sailed away. And I think people are now focused on the technology and asking, what can this do for me? Because I only have so much money to spend. How do I invest my dollars smart? Fragmentation of media. What should I be doing with those customers who I have in my location to not only influence them while they're there, but also influence them in a way to whereas I can get them coming back again. So it's about how do I invest my dollars to really have the biggest impact on my customers moving forward, and where are those dollars best placed, right? Which used to be traditional media models, but that's now being rethought because how customers are using locations and how critical it is to impress them while you have them on your location.
Yeah.
Todd, I think you wanted to.
Well, yeah, our path forward is definitely digital. Any new shops that we're opening will be digital. Remodels are going digital. It's looking at our existing shops and going backwards and pulling out the static to replace it with digital. That's where we're going to have the hardest time with the math, and probably going to be the slowest. But definitely going forward, it's all arguments are there for installing digital over more static.
I think we probably have time for one more question.
So this question comes from Robert. It says, out here on the West Coast at In-N-Out, he's seen the digital signage systems overwhelmed, and their solution is to deploy an army of employees with Wi-Fi tablets to collect orders and quicken the lines and throughput. What is the mindset on this solution? I've definitely seen that.
My quick add is when we do a store opening, we definitely have tablets. When we're getting slammed in the drive-through, we enable a team of team members to be out there taking orders through the tablets. But once things have simmered down, it's not currently part of our game plan going forward. But it is for new store openings.
Anybody else seeing that?
I think tablets are a great option in California where the weather permits it. But
Not so much in Minnesota?
they may become geographically undesirable, based on what the drive-through situation is around the country.
Yeah, but ironically, here in Chicago, and I'm not going to name names, but there's a chain that has probably 50 locations that does a lot of Italian beef sandwiches, has no menu boards, no digital menu boards, no digital outdoor, but has, an army of people moving a line through the drive-through with tablets like you can't believe.
Right. I think that's all the time we.
Set up for that as well. So,
Marcella, I think that's about all the time we have. Thank
Yep.
you, everybody, for coming on today.
Thank you, everyone, especially to our speakers and also to our listeners for joining today's webinar, Digital Signage Power Hour, Why Drive-Through Lane Displays Are Mission Critical. Special thank you to StrataCache for sponsoring the Digital Signage Power Hour series. This recording will be available on avixa.org/webinars within about 5 business days, and your 1 RU credit will be applied to your transcripts within 5 to 7 business days. If you have any trouble, please contact webinars@avixa.org. A huge thank you to Dan, Dave, and guests for providing insights into how food service companies are using digital signage technology to adapt to changing consumer demands and needs. We hope you enjoyed. Have a great day.
thank you.
Right. Thank you.